This is the 2018 found footage horror film The Mime 5. Enjoy! Synopsis. When a group of friends in New York City stumble upon a mysterious mime dressed in a ratty bear costume, they unwittingly invite him into their home, where he slowly begins to terrorize them one by one. And no, this isn't an original story at all. That's just a very loose summary of what happens in this movie. But hey, it's the execution that counts, right? Well, yeah, and we'll get to that shortly. But first, if you like what we do here, why not show your support? It helps the channel out a lot and gets us closer to our goal of hitting 100,000 subscribers before the end of the year. So thank you for doing that. Now let's get into the review. First things first, props need to be given where props are due. This film has a great atmosphere for the most part and sets up some legitimate scares, especially in the first half of the film. There are some genuinely creepy scenes, too, like when the main character, Alex, finds the mysterious mime wandering around his apartment while he is in the shower. The fact that the film is shot in a dark, desaturated color palette also adds to the overall dread and sense of unease. In addition to this, the sound design is quite good and features some solid use of silence to build tension. Furthermore, the score composed by Pascal Boule and Simon Carpentier, who also edited the film, complements the visuals nicely and heightens certain moments of terror. A big part of the film's effectiveness comes down to the mime costume. It's covered in patches and dirt and looks generally pretty dingy, which helps sell the notion that the character hasn't bathed or shaved in months. On top of this, the physical performance by actor Pierre Bioliri, who's credited as the Mime 5, enhances the believability of the character. Even though there are moments when the makeup clearly isn't 100% perfect, the way that O'Leary moves and acts still makes the mime feel real and grounded in reality. However, once the film shifts from the build-up phase to the actual carnage, it starts to lose me. For instance, the deaths are pretty lame and uninspired, and the kills that were obviously meant to evoke revulsion don't really work because they aren't presented in a practical way. For example, in one scene, Alex notices that the mime has feces on his hands and then he touches his face with those same hands. Gross, right? Yeah, but did the mime eat something that made him constipated and then later track that poop into his hands? How does this make any sense? Similarly, there's a scene where the mime defecates on the floor and then proceeds to eat that poop. Who does that? Why would you do that? Sorry, but I have standards and this ain't it, Chief. Moreover, the pace of the film is off balance, almost as if the different directors had varying visions for the final product and the studio forced them to combine their cuts together in post-production. For example, the film opens with a bang and builds the tension nicely for about 20 minutes. Then all of a sudden, it slows to a crawl and the film takes its sweet time to get back to the main plot. It feels like this happens a couple more times throughout the movie as well, and it's really jarring. And speaking of pacing, one thing I noticed is that the characters rarely leave their apartment. They do venture out a few times in the beginning to search for food, but after that, they stay inside for the remainder of the film. This decision feels like it was made to limit the scope and setting of the film, which is fine, but it also makes the characters come across as stupid. Why wouldn't they barricade the doors and windows and call the cops? Would it have been that hard to do that? Instead, the characters just kinda wander around their apartment as the mime picks them off one by one. It feels like they're playing right into the killer's hand. Like the film tries to play this up as if the apartment is now a trap, but the characters don't seem to realize this until it's almost too late. If anything, it seems like they're happy that the mime is in the apartment with them, as if having a crazed killer in their apartment is some sort of bonus or something. There is another aspect of the film that I also want to touch on briefly, and that is the subplot involving Alex's ex-girlfriend Lisa, who's staying over at a friend's apartment near theirs. The reason I say it as a subplot is because it technically could be removed entirely, and nothing of significance would change. In the film, the characters discuss Lisa's potential involvement with the killing, but there's zero evidence of this. Alex even goes so far as to defend her, saying that she couldn't have done it because she doesn't have a violent bone in her body. But then later he says, maybe I was wrong. Why? What makes you say that? Did they test her DNA? No, so what's the point of even including this in the film? I mentioned earlier that the first half of the film establishes some legitimate scares, but the second half suffers from poor pacing and unimpressive kill scenes. I think this is mostly due to the fact that the film is based on a true story, but in the way that American Psycho is based on a true story. You see, the director had this idea for a horror film, and then he read a news article about a homeless man who hadn't bathed for several years and thought, that's kind of interesting. Let's use that as inspiration for my film. He then took bits and pieces from other news articles and stories and wove them together into this film, which I guess technically makes it based on a true story, but it's not like he took this article verbatim and put it on screen. I bring this up because it's important to note that the film is loosely based on these events, which might explain some of the weak points in the narrative. Overall, The Mime is a decent found footage flick with a strong atmosphere and a few solid scares. Unfortunately, though, the kills don't live up to par with the rest of the film, and the pacing is all over the place. If you're a fan of the found footage genre and you can get past the silly kill scenes, then you might find yourself enjoying this one. I personally am a huge fan of the found footage genre. I love reliving the magic that these types of films brought to the horror world in the early 2000s, and while The Mime isn't a bad film, I just wish it followed more of a linear narrative and had better kill scenes. Oh, and please, for the love of God, don't eat your own poop. So I give The Mime 5 out of 10. What did you think of the film? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Thank you for watching.